We did request new Housing Minister Paul Calandra or any designate of his. Nobody, however, from the Ontario government got back to us. With me to react now, official opposition leader Marit Stiles, leader of the New Democrats in Ontario, and John Fraser, the interim leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. Hello to both of you. Thank you very much for making the time this evening. Ms. Stiles, I wanted to start with you. Your predecessor, Andrea Horwath, now the mayor of Hamilton, in response to the Premier's announcement today about re-evaluating the Greenbelt sites, called it welcome news. You called it a sham. Is Ms. Horwath wrong?
Well, she's a mayor of Hamilton now, so she's going to have her own relationship with the government and things. But I absolutely think this is a sham. And I think Ontarians know it is as well. First of all, we've had 2 reviews already, both by independent officers of the legislature. This latest one, both of them were damning reports, but this latest one by the Integrity Commissioner that I requested back in December shows, deep corruption and collusion. And so the idea that the government's response is to conduct another review, it's a colossal waste of our time and our money, and it's not going to solve the problem. In fact, I would argue it's designed to just distract from what's really happening here, which is that the government set this whole process up in order to basically gift some very wealthy developers who are connected to the Conservative Party and to the Premier with $1 billion deal. And also, by the way, from the fact that the land should never have been removed in the first place. It is completely contrary to the recommendations of a task force, of the Premier's own task force, of housing committees and experts over and over again, saying that this land should not be used for this purpose. And in fact, this whole process has just simply delayed our attempts to address the actual housing crisis. It's caused us to lose precious time.
Pardon the interruption, Ms. Stiles. We just have limited time. I want to make sure to bring in your colleague, Mr. Fraser. Just as a quick follow-up, though, is there any world in which, and I take the point around your concerns already, is there any world in which, though, a nonpartisan adjudicator could come to a conclusion on all of this that both Ontarians and you can trust?
I think those have been already conducted. The Auditor General pointed very clearly at not only the problems in the process, but the very premise for developing this land in the first place. So the 2 really fulsome reviews by independent officers of the legislature, this is no small matter. This is just the government attempting to, frankly, also, they're capturing a lot more land in this so-called review. What they're doing here is actually opening up more of the Greenbelt for development potentially. So I think it's a real problem, and they should just restore the land to the Greenbelt right away.
I want to ask you, Mr. Fraser, about whether your interpretation is in alignment with that there's the possibility of more land actually being open.
There's no question.
First, though, I just want to put something to you, because Ms. Stiles' party wrote this of your party last year. When the Liberals had a chance in government to protect the Greenbelt, they carved it up for developers 17 times rather than expand it. When it comes to the environment, the Liberals can't be relied on to protect what matters. Do they have a point? You did allow some changes to the Greenbelt, not of this scale.
We created the Greenbelt in the first place, number 1. Number 2, there were 17 changes. It totaled 340 acres. We added 21,000 acres, 21 river basins, and we consulted environmental groups who supported that at the time. So, unfortunately, my colleague is repeating the government, Premier Ford's talking points, which are untrue. Right?
He's trying to dismiss your criticism of him so far, though, today. He said, what is the opposition doing? Are they going to come up with solutions? They did stuff, too, when they were empowered.
We did what was supposed to be done, which is review after 10 years, and made very, very minor changes and added to it. Look, this is about an $8.3 billion Greenbelt giveaway to a handful of people who literally handed brown envelopes to people. The Minister Clark's chief of staff, for instance, well, Mr. Clark didn't hire him. The Premier's office hired him and put him there. And then we have the EA, the former EA to the Premier, working with Mr. X, who's the unregistered lobbyist, lobbying the government to crack open the Greenbelt. So when you look at this, and I know why the government's afraid, it's beginning to look more and more like all roads lead back to the Premier's office on this one.
And so what do you want to happen? I mean, the minister has already resigned. They are asking for this review to be conducted, or they're prompting, rather, a review, a reevaluation of everything that's going on. Do you just want a full stop halt to whatever they're deciding to do with the Greenbelt?
Yes. First of all, what the Premier announced today is a total nothing burger. It's not going to address the problem that's here right now. What they need to do is reverse this $8.3 billion giveaway, do what the Auditor General said, return the land, and then they need to open the books. And by opening the books, I mean we need to see the emails, the texts, the missing cell phones. A legislative committee has to be able to interview all those who are involved. I think it's very important. Ontarians are losing trust in their government, and I think members on all sides of the legislature, whether you're a Conservative or a Liberal or NDP or Green, want answers on this. Because what happened here was wrong. It broke trust, and something needs to happen to clear the air.
Ms. Stiles, the Auditor General herself told the Globe and Mail in an exit interview, "I have nothing in the report that indicates anything criminal that took place. I think what we see here is an ethical issue." Do you take her at her word?
Well, we'll see. I mean, the RCMP is considering investigating. I've also asked the Integrity Commissioner to conduct a second report. That back in December, I did ask him as well to investigate the Premier's connections to some of these developers that were invited to his private family functions, you know, the stag and doe everybody's talked about. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? We're just scratching the surface. And I would say, you know, I've read through all 166 pages of the Integrity Commissioner's report as well. And the Premier is directly implicated. So I expect there is more to come. And I think that John is right. And we've been calling on the government to absolutely, the Premier needs to share his phone records. He can't hide from this anymore. He needs to come clean with Ontarians. Ontarians know that this is a dirty deal. It's wrong. And they also know, and very importantly, they know this, that it isn't going to solve the housing crisis. This government's corruption and their actions have really caused us to lose time. So it's a distraction and a colossal waste of time and money.
Just so that I'm clear, though, are you alleging the possibility of some type of criminality or ethical breaches?
Well, I think that first of all, we know that the minister broke the Members' Integrity Act. He broke the law. The RCMP is deciding whether they're going to investigate further. So we'll see what they come up with. But, you know, look, we've got a number of significant and serious allegations here of certainly a massive breach of trust and by the Premier. So we're looking very carefully, and we're going to continue to make sure that every stone is turned over to ensure that Ontarians get the answers they deserve. This goes right to the very top. Absolutely.
I certainly understand the questions that you and Ms. Stiles are raising, Mr. Fraser, but again, I'll circle back to the Auditor General's point. She did look through everything, right? She was able to come to the conclusions she did, which in and of themselves are very damning to the government. But she says in this interview with Laura Stone at the Globe, she delineates between issues of criminality and ethical issues. She says specifically, "I have nothing in the report that indicates anything criminal that took place."
It's not the Auditor General's responsibility to do criminal investigations. What she's supposed to do is a value for money audit. She doesn't do a criminal investigation. If you look at the Integrity Commissioner and you look at the breadth of his evidence, it's not his job to figure out criminality other than for the act. Now it's going to be up to the RCMP to take a look at this. There's a lot in that 166-page report, as Marit said, a lot. And it raises more questions than it provides answers. And so that's why it's really important for all parties in the legislature, and I'm calling on my Conservative colleagues to do the same. We need to ask the people involved just what happened, because it's important that Ontarians trust their government, and just, you know, and assure Ontarians that all opposition parties, you know, we have our differences. We're all at times, but we're all very aligned at getting to the bottom of this, and we will.
Has the RCMP, I'll just really quickly ask you, I have 10 seconds left, contacted either of you? Mr. Fraser, you first?
Nope.
Ms. Stiles?
Not yet, but can I just say, Vassy, I do have some legislation ready to go to restore those lands to the Greenbelt. So I'm hoping the government will call the legislature back, and we can do the right thing, all of us together.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I appreciate both of you making the time for this. NDP Leader Ontario, NDP Leader Marit Stiles, Interim Ontario Liberal Leader John Fraser. We're going to get into a discussion of the politics of all of this a little later this evening.